Welcome to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. Each episode will tear down a myth, kick a social norm in the beanbag, gut punch a sex ed untruth, or destroy a poorly constructed relationship expectation. Get ready to unlearn all the crap you accepted as fact. Strap in for a mind-blowing revision on what sex is and what it can do. Prepare yourself for a whole new thought pattern when it comes to modern relationships. And now, here's your host, Jenny Simas, the Intimacy Ally, relationship expert and certified sex and intimacy coach.
Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. It's me, Jenny Simas, Lady, the Intimacy Ally, and I am joined today by this fantastic woman who I have known about half my life now, and her name is Kristen Browne. She runs Browne Bag Nutrition, and I am just so excited for the fucking amazing knowledge that she is gonna drop on the people listening today. So, Kristen, with that being said, I would love it if you could introduce yourself a little bit and kind of let us know like what led you to this work.
Okay. So I'm Kristen Browne. Like Jenny said, I work with, my founding company is Browne Bag Nutrition. I am a licensed nutritionist in the state of Maryland. I have changed careers a couple times in my life, as many people
Have we all?
Yes. We all need to start a career.
Just for a reference, we started out as theater majors
Oh, yes.
together.
Oh, yes. So my past life, I was a stage manager, primarily for children's theater. And when I realized that theater was not quite my passion anymore and wouldn't really fit in with my schedule once I got married and wanted to start having a fammy, I started looking elsewhere. It led me to about 7 years where I was a nanny. And once I had a couple years of nannying, I was really looking around, like it was exciting. I loved working with children, but that was just kind of not what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So as I was looking around, I realized that I've always had a passion for food, for eating, for figuring out what it does in our bodies, to our bodies. And it slowly got me into looking at programs that focused on nutrition. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but I went to grad school for nutrition, and about a semester or so before I graduated, I really started thinking more about who are the people I want to help to work with. You know, nutrition itself is very broad and vague.
Right.
We all eat because we have to. If we don't eat, we don't live.
We should probably all eat a little better. So.
You know, healthy is very relative as well, but we have to eat to live on this planet.
It's a thing.
So that being said, with nutrition, I could literally talk to anybody. But that gives me a very wide scope of people to talk to. And I found out about 5 weeks after I was accepted to my nutrition graduate program that I was pregnant with my son. And through
I didn't even know that.
Yes. Through that course of time, my body and his kind of became my guinea pigs for what I was learning about and kind of what I wanted to do with food. So
all right.
It kind of ended up that I wanted to focus both on pediatric nutrition and then kind of fertility, infertility, nutrition, and kind of a little bit of women's health. And that's kind of where I've stayed, mostly because as I looked at other nutritionists, both in our state and around the country, there's so many that focus with just your typical average adult, 18 to 60-ish, a lot of focus on weight loss. And that is not what I wanted to do. That market is way oversaturated. They did not need me there. But when you look at the younger generations of our population and the older generations, they really don't have the support that they need. So both pediatric and geriatric nutrition is really lacking in our society. And with, a very young child at home when I graduated, I was kind of like, this is where I'm going to start because it's new territory for me as well. Let me see what I can learn and what I can kind of focus on with him and with myself, freshly postpartum, and kind of lead that into where I established my business. And
Wow.
it was it was a very interesting grad school time. So pregnant my first year, had an infant my second year, into toddler my final year, and I graduated
Goddess love
finding
ya.
out I was pregnant
Jeez,
with my daughter.
flip.
So
Oh my God.
full circle.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And so then I was pregnant, and then child number 2, as I took the board exam and then did my 1,000 supervised hours to complete my program and start my business. And so yeah, lots of hands-on little ones to help me kind of figure out what I was doing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So where did you do that? Like, was there a place that you had to go and like, well, I guess you had to be supervised, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I did graduate school with the Maryland University of Integrative Health, MUIH, in Laurel. I got really
Nice.
lucky that it's like practically in my backyard, so I was able to go to campus in person. I was able to do my clinic in person, but we have a ton of students that do the program virtually as well.
Okay.
And then when that program was done, I found a supervisor virtually. I worked with Dr. Jamie Shear in New York. She was my supervisor for 2 years as I accumulated the mass amount of hours that I needed to do. It's ridiculous. 1,000 hours is a lot of time. And we actually, our program requires more education and more experience than those who are registered dietitians.
Of course it does.
So
sorry, I'm like bitter right now on registered dietitians. We can get into that later.
I know that's a whole other podcast, but anyway, they're slowly changing their program as well. Although there are states that are trying to veto them getting a master's instead of a bachelor's, and so yeah, so it's a lot. It was like med school light for me, and it's so nice to have the majority of that done. You know, we still have to do like 75 hours worth of continuing education over every 5-year period to continue with our certification, to stay in good standing as certified nutritionists, on top of also every 2 years having to renew with the state. It's really confusing keeping track of our CEUs and when we renew with which organization. But you know, somehow I keep it in mind. I got lots of spreadsheets going.
And raise 2 little kids, and you know, and just keep on trucking and have a beautiful home. Yeah, you know, all
and
the
somehow
things.
sleep and
staying fit yourself. You know,
you're funny. Sometimes drink some water.
Yes, we should all drink water.
Hydrate.
On my favorite podcast, and that's why we drink, which is, you know, literally about milkshakes and alcohol. So probably not the best nutrition advice, but M. Schultz will pause and say, "It's time to hydrate, you thirsty little rats." and it's my favorite thing. And every time I'm like, yes,
it
all
is.
right, M.
Yes, it is.
They got it right. So that's kind of a whirlwind to get into this as a career.
Yes.
And you've been doing this for like over, what, is it getting on to 10 years now?
No, not even.
No. How long?
It's been about 5. I graduated and passed the board certification in 2019.
Sometimes I forget that your kids are so much younger than mine.
And then we had that COVID time is just a blur.
Yes.
So
yes.
It's okay. Yeah, it's been 5. It's been about 5 years.
Nice.
Which still seems to me like I feel like it's been 10, but it definitely hasn't.
Right, because COVID was simultaneously 100 years and no time at all. So there's that whole juxtaposition. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but you still love it? Do you still feel very inspired to help all of those same people? Are you still very interested in working with like the pediatric and the geriatric, or has it kind of changed?
I don't do much with the geriatric population at the time. I think about it a lot. There's a part of me that feels like, though, that's probably too much for me to handle, because right now my practice is just me. If I hit a point where I'm able to have other practitioners come with me, I would love to expand to that group of individuals as well, just because there's not a lot out there for them. You see it, the food in nursing homes and things like that. It's not.
It's very close to hospital food, which is god awful.
Also not the best quality sometimes.
Yeah, I didn't have high blood pressure until I was in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really sad, the state of
Mhm.
food in this entire country.
Yeah.
But right now, I do not focus on the geriatric population. I primarily focus on pediatrics with some reaching out to those with either fertility or infertility issues, doing kind of preconception, prenatal, and postpartum nutrition as well. And then a
Okay.
little bit, I'm starting to kind of branch out more, getting into perimenopause and menopause, but
Okay.
pediatrics is my primary focus.
All right.
I just there's so much to and looking at how nutrition can not just help kids in general, but those with allergies, with intolerances, those with special needs. So looking at how ADHD and autism and
Mhm.
sensory processing disorder and PDA and beyond, like what food can do for so many individuals. It's crazy how much what we eat affects our whole body, our mind, everything that's there. So
Absolutely.
just looking at different ways that I can help when possible is just like it's a huge passion of mine. And as you've seen through the theater, through the nannying and here, like somehow just working with kids was just always meant to be for me. So
Right?
that's kind of why I've really stuck with it. But I do like women's health is very important to me at all as well. And knowing that our hormones shift so much through the course of our lifetime and that there's still not a lot of studies done to explain why what's happening to us happens and what to do
Mhm.
with that is very frustrating to me. So if there's ways that I can help
Mhm.
with food and lifestyle choices too, I want to make sure that both for myself and people I know are comfortable as we continue to age and change and shift. And that we're not going through all this going, I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know why. And I just
Mhm.
have to suck it up and deal. Nobody should have to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Well, first of all, when it comes to the pediatric side, like if you teach a kid how to find nutritious food or how to enjoy
Hmm.
things that are, more nourishing for them, the younger that you can get that in there, the better chances at like better growth, better brain
Yes.
development. And I mean,
Yes.
and I'm not saying that like, oh, well, if you got to them at 25, it's terrible because their brains already
No.
stopped developing. Like if somebody can improve their health at any
Mhm,
fucking age, I don't care if it's
mhm.
86 years old. If you
Yes,
can improve your health at 86 years old, then you should absolutely fucking do it.
absolutely.
Um, but I think that a big thing for me, because you know that I have a kid with nonverbal severe autism,
Mhm.
and I have started to really see how very minor changes
Yep,
in his diet can really, really change behavior.
yep.
And seeing how little changes in my daughter's diet can really help with growth and lower anxiety.
Yeah.
So these are things that are very intriguing to me, but they're also very intriguing to me. Like you said, you're starting to kind of branch out into that perimenopause,
Mhm,
menopause age. I think that I heard this talk the other day by an endocrinologist who I love, who she's trying to get women who are perimenopausal to eat more fat.
mhm.
And she's like, fat is good for you
Yes,
and it helps you
yes.
through these things. And she's like, look, perimenopause wasn't a thing before 1920 or
Right,
1910, maybe was the first guy who said it, the first guy, mind you,
right.
because they want to market all of this HRT to you.
Yeah.
And they want to tell you that you're broken and
Mhm.
sick for just, going through the ages and stages of being a fucking woman.
Exactly.
So I think that going at it from a nutrition approach is so much less damaging
Yes.
to our souls and to our minds and to our bodies,
Yeah,
because our bodies were designed to go through these changes.
yeah.
So why are you trying to medicalize that?
Right.
Like,
And the
don't medicalize me for aging,
no,
fucker.
no, no, we're supposed to get older. We have to.
Yeah.
We cannot
Yeah.
stop the aging process, no matter what. No matter how hard we
Yeah.
try, we cannot stop it. Um,
Right. We are supposed to become crones. We are supposed to
yes.
become grandmas. We're not supposed to have to keep spitting out kids.
No.
Come on, y'all. Like there's a whole reason for that, because then our kids can have kids and then we
Mhm.
get to help with that, and we don't have to keep being baby makers.
Oh, no.
Could you
Yeah.
imagine being
No.
60 and like still
Oh,
pressing out? No, I don't want to.
I'm done.
No. Mm-mm.
I don't want to
I know,
imagine
and
it now.
I know that I could still have, like, there could be more, but I'm like, I don't want to. No,
No.
I'm good.
Yeah, my hands are full enough. I'm perfectly content with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, addressing a little bit of what you mentioned as far as like consuming fats as you're going through perimenopause. So I'm sure you remember this. We are of the generation growing up that like we went through a lot of food trauma, I think, with our parents. Because that is the generation that thought fat made you fat. And so we went through all of the fat-free foods, all of the low-fat foods. They tried to like eradicate fat from our diet, and everything that they replaced it with had ridiculous amounts of sugar and salt and all these other things in it instead. And they have since realized that it was falsified information by scientists, some out of Harvard, who basically were paid to tell people that fat was the enemy when they knew that it's a crucial macronutrient for our bodies, for our growth, for our brain development. Like, you see, tells you my husband's going to pop in at some point while we're doing this. You can just see him in the back.
Haven't seen you in a while, man. Hey.
But fat is so important for our bodies. When we consume fat with a meal, it helps us stay satiated for longer. It does not burn in our bodies nearly as quickly as carbohydrates. So when we eat a carb paired with a fat, it helps our body stay fuller for longer. It carries us to the next meal without us having that blood sugar crash. It like literally helps keep our blood sugar levels much more stable. Certain fats, like you're getting your omega-3s, are anti-inflammatory. So when we consume those, it is helping to reduce all the inflammation that we have inside our bodies. And that is key. A lot of conditions and illnesses are centered around inflammation in certain areas of our body. And so we need those omega-3 essential fatty acids to bring that inflammation down. It's going to help improve symptoms over time, and kind of like you said, just medicating us doesn't bring us to the root cause of any issues that we deal with. It masks our symptoms and maybe temporarily makes us feel better. But when you mask symptoms that you're dealing with, then you don't know if they still exist, if they're getting worse, if they're actually improving. And when you look at consuming food to help improve things in your body, you have a way of tracking whether things are finally starting to get better, because food is not going to cover up your symptoms. Most times it's going to help them slowly start to get better. It may not happen nearly as quickly as we want sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You can see changes when there are shifts in the diet. It's very hard to see when there's improvements when you're taking a medication that's just covering up the pain and the discomfort and not showing you if there's improvements.
Right. And the other thing about taking a medication is like it might be helping one and then creating two others.
Oh, the side effects.
Yeah.
They're awful.
And I really get frustrated. Like, so I ran this like free support group online last year during the summer, and I'm thinking about doing it again. It was just like a weekly meeting, women who were going through perimenopause or okay. So let's just get that straight real quick. Menopause is the day that your menses pause. Like, that's it. So there is perimenopause, there is menopause, that's the day your period ends, and then there is postmenopause.
Yes.
I got interviewed by an OBGYN who set me straight on that. So I was like, all right, here we go. Now Dr. Angela has said. And so these women were all perimenopausal because they hadn't quite hit menopause. And so many of them were on SSRIs, mood stabilizers, having issues with like endometriosis, vaginal dryness, mood swings, hot sweats, da-da-da-da. No one had said word one to them about adjusting diet.
Yep.
No one. And I was kind of in shock because that was one of the first things that I worried about, was because I got diagnosed with diabetes around the same time that I started seeing all these signs.
Yeah.
And I was on an SSRI still. So I'm like, all of these things coming together at the same time. Like, something's a little weird here.
Coincidence? Hmm.
Yeah. Like, I feel like maybe I should be kind of pulling back on some of these medications and like pulling up on some of these really nice, nutritious foods and see where it goes. And drinking more fucking water.
Yes. Yes. Back to the hydration. It's so important. It's so important. And I don't think a lot of people realize how much can shift in your body by staying properly hydrated. It's so simple because, for the most part, I know that there are some people who don't, but for the most part, the vast majority of people in the United States have constant access to water. It is either cheap or free. If you have issues where you are unhoused and you don't have direct access there, you can still go places like public libraries, parks. Places are really starting to add in extra water fountains and water bottle filling stations. And so, for the most part, we all have pretty constant free access to water.
Yeah, even like Walmart and Target now have the ones where you can like fill a bottle versus like just a water fountain.
So yes, we can always talk about like reverse osmosis and water fillers water filters and pitchers and bottled water and all those extra things that if you are privileged enough to be able to access those too, those are additional options, but they also come at a cost. And for a lot of people, that additional cost is not in their budget and not in their means, but just direct access to water. For the most part, we all have it. And knowing that it is something very simple that we can all do, it's amazing what adding an extra glass or two of water to your day will do. It can help improve skin quality. It can help improve brain fog and confusion and some, very beginning memory issues. It can help with mood, with energy, with your sleep. Just our entire body functions on water.
With your general body hydration, which is one of the things that, vaginal dryness is one of those fucking things that creeps up when we start entering this perimenopausal age. And it wasn't a problem for me until it was a problem. And then it was like, oh snap, what do I got to do?
Yeah.
And for me, it was actually coming off the SSRI, fixed a lot of that, but
That's
then
great.
realizing and being responsible, I guess, for my hydration, taking ownership of it, not being like, oh, well, I just, I got busy and blah, blah, blah. No, Jenny, just, walk around with a bottle. And when it's empty, fill it back up.
Yeah.
And how much do you say? Are you like staunch on like the 64 ounces plus? Are you like the half your body weight? Where are you at?
I am at that position where everybody is different. I don't feel like there is a universal standard. We're all
beautiful.
Different sizes and shapes, and the lifestyle and environmental aspects that affect us too are all different. So what I tell everybody is do your best. Like you said, if you can carry around a water bottle with you, whether it's 8 ounces or it's like a giant like 64 ounces and you're like, I'm just going to carry this and drink 2 gallons of water you need to do what works for you. You need to do use what you have at home and start with that. Don't go spend extra money to buy something else because we don't need to spend extra money. We can use that for something else, for something more important later. Use what you have at home and start with that. If you have just a regular 8 ounce glass and you work at home and you're able to get up and go refill it every time it's empty, you know what? That's adding movement into your day as well, where, you just sat down and kept an empty glass next to you. So sometimes it's just about taking what you have and starting there first and starting small. And you can always, graduate to something bigger later if you find that what you have isn't enough for you. But I am a family of, 2 small children and minimal income. And so I always approach things with like, how can we do this the most frugal way possible? How can we do it without spending any money? Everybody I know is already spending hundreds, thousands of dollars on practitioners and doctors and everything else that goes on in their life. Like, they don't need more of that from me. I want to save you time, save you money, and improve your health as best I can. So just start with what you have. For some people, 64 ounces is a lot of water. It's really hard to get there, and I get it. So what I tell people is we can always start with like a water schedule. Start with something small and just set a timer on your phone. Like every hour, remind yourself, have a couple sips of water. Sometimes
Mhm.
that reminder is what you need to start. And you might get to a place in a couple weeks or a couple months where you're doing it on your own and you don't need to be reminded anymore. But we're all busy. There's a lot in our brains. And sometimes we just don't need that extra things sitting in there. Like if our phone can just beep and go drink some water. It's one less
Mhm.
thing I need to think about on my own. Um,
Yeah.
for some people, they just, again, like you said, if you carry it around with you, you see it in front of you, you're much more aware and you remember. But again, some people get very busy, like our poor teachers or some of the
Mhm.
most dehydrated population we have. They don't have the
Yeah, because when are
opportunity
they
to go in the
supposed to pee it
bathroom.
all out, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
So sometimes, you kind of have to like front load before you get to work. Do what you can at work with minimal sips and then like do what you can to catch up at the end of the day. Something
Mhm.
different is going to work for everybody, but there is no set standard of this is how much your body needs because you are not the same as anybody else on the planet.
I remember when I worked with you a little bit a few years ago and
Hmm.
I was not drinking very much water at all. You were like, "Have a glass with each meal. Let's start there." If you can do that, and you were
Yeah.
like, and when it gets hot out, you're gonna want more naturally.
Yeah.
So, but just start there. And I just thought that was brilliant. Like not making somebody feel guilty for
No.
not drinking enough water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there is a lot of that. Like if you're, like I said,
Yes.
I know those things that are completely arbitrary, but I know them because I've had them spouted at me,
Hmm.
by doctors who have way less nutrition training than you do.
Yes.
Um, and let's
Next to
talk
none.
about
Most
that just
doctors
for a
have
little bit.
next to none.
Yeah, can we talk about that just for a
Yes, we
minute?
can.
Okay, because I feel like a lot of women are getting misdirected on
Yes.
what could help them easily in their diet,
Hmm.
hydration, what have
Hmm.
you, because they are believing, and I don't want to bash
Hmm.
all doctors,
Right.
but I do want to say, like, it's kind of a stay in your lane thing. Like,
Yes.
if you have a bleeding arm, then yeah, go to
Please
the
don't come to me.
doctor. Yeah. But if you're trying to figure out how you can maximize your nutrition, I don't think a doctor's where you got to go.
No, you're absolutely right about scope of practice where there is a very strict lane that I have to stay in when I
Mhm.
am seeing clients. Um, and the same goes for medical physicians as well. Like they sometimes have a single class, a single course that deals with very basic nutrition. But
Mhm.
even then, a lot of them don't have any nutrition background during their med school education. And it's very frustrating that most of what they take kind of comes directly from what's posted online. We had the food pyramid for a really long time. And
Oh
so
my
that's
god.
that's what they all would kind of preach to their patients. And
Mhm.
we have slowly learned that a lot of that information is not accurate. Um,
Mhm.
and to go to a practitioner who doesn't have a background in nutrition just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Mm-mm.
I when you are feeling ill and you need a wellness check or, you do need a particular medication, absolutely. That's what your doctors are there for. And they are very well versed in all of that, but they have next to no nutrition background whatsoever. It is not really a requirement um, for most med school programs at all. So
Mm-mm.
it's up to them to do their own research, and most of them don't. There are
Right.
some who definitely see the benefit of learning what food can do for your body and have definitely started to make their practices a little bit more integrative with
Mhm.
nutrition and have done the research, and those are the people you really want to see. But it's
Okay.
really important to kind of ask your practitioner, like, do you have a background in nutrition? Have you done any research? Are you up to date with where studies are on particular kinds of foods and vitamins and minerals and what is going on in our bodies? A lot of
Right.
them don't. And I
Right.
get it. It's not their focus and it's not what they want to spend the time researching. But if
Mhm.
that's the case, then you should not be the one doling that information out to your clients. Tell them,
Yeah.
I don't have that background. I really
Mhm.
suggest you go to a nutritionist or a dietitian and somebody who has spent the time learning about this so they can
Right.
help you.
Yeah,
I
and I
I am
mean,
always going to refer out when there's something that's beyond what I know, and they should do the same.
right. No, absolutely. I hear you completely on that because it's like the coaching
Yeah.
versus, somebody needing therapy. I
Yes.
always am like, even if it's just like a caution thing, I'm like, I feel like there might be something more going on. Here is
Yes.
a colleague
Hmm.
or three that
Yes.
you can reach out to and see if you dig them.
Hmm.
Um, I'm very blessed that way with the Sexual Health Alliance that I have
Yeah.
all these people that are in different parts of the country, sometimes different parts of the world that I can refer people to so that they're
Hmm.
in the correct place with their
Yeah.
licensure. Um, now, and I think another piece of this is that there's all this rhetoric that comes from like the American Diabetes Association, the American Heart Association or Foundation,
Mhm.
and I'm finding out all of these things about how the studies are paid for by big food and big pharma. And I feel
Yep.
like such a tinfoil hat nerd about it. And I
Hmm.
don't love it because
Yeah.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. And I kind of like I've spent a lot of time judging conspiracy theorists. Like, and now that I'm having this kind of unraveling,
Yeah.
it's made me very conscientious of researching
Yes.
things or not research because I'm not getting paid to like, it's not research, it's like
Yeah.
literature review or whatever,
Yeah.
master stuff in my head. But going through studies and being like, oh, okay, this one says that red meat is really bad for you, but guess what they counted as red meat? Lasagna,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking to have that kind of information thrown at you. That was in that last Harvard study, and I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're totally skewing your results, and you're gonna
Yes.
make people sicker. Stop
Yes.
it.
Yes. Um, it's I both
I know we
love
can go
and
on and
hate
on about
social
this.
media, and it's like I always have to tell people, yes, you have to do your own research and look, but you also need to know where to look,
Hmm.
because when you do a basic Google search on something regarding nutrition, a lot of what dumps out in the beginning are people's blog posts and articles from some magazines and journals, but it's really hard to determine what's, you know,
Is it
truly
fact-based or is it
scientific. Yeah,
opinion?
what
Has
is
it
just
been like,
anecdotal?
right,
Oh,
is it a random controlled trial,
right.
or
And
is it
who
like
paid for
just a
this? And
survey that they handed out to a
yes,
bunch of people and they
yes,
filled it in the way they felt like it? Yeah.
right. It's so hard because the information is overwhelming. It's everywhere. We can
Mhm.
find answers all over the place, but whether they're accurate or not, that's the big question. And so one of the things I tell people is if you really want to go find the tried and true studies that have been done, and they will tell you, you've got to scroll down to the bottom, but they will tell you whether it was funded by a particular organization or not, if it was through an educational organization through a university, or if it came through Nestle or
Mhm.
whoever. um,
Kellogg.
right, there are always
Mhm.
disclaimers on the bottom of the studies, whether there's a conflict of interest because it was through a paid group that so and so, this scientist is
Mhm.
part of this group. You're always going to get that information there, but PubMed, PubMed, is a great
Mhm.
website to go through to look for the articles that are in, the scientific journals, the ones that are really your double blind, peer reviewed, full on scientific testing to really
Mhm.
produce the results that are actually helpful.
Right.
Um, the problem still with a lot of the ways that we do these scientific reviews is a lot of times they can only look at one specific aspect at a time.
Right.
So even when you're down to like looking at vitamins, looking at minerals, looking how particular foods affect people's bodies, they
Mhm.
really only focus on one single aspect of a huge whole. So it gives us a slightly better picture, but it's still not giving us the full picture of what can go on in a person's body.
Mhm.
And looking at the history of who the participants were in these tests too, until very recently, the majority of people they were testing were your average white males.
Right.
So you are still not getting people of color and women to be participants in these studies nearly as much as they should be. So there's a lot still that doesn't tell us how it's going to affect a woman's body, how it's going to affect a Black woman's body. Like, we are not getting that information still.
Mhm.
And so a lot of these tests really need to be done with a much more diverse group of people that they are testing and looking at answers for. Because again, we are all so vastly different. We cannot base this all on white men at all, because
Right.
a white man's body is nothing like mine and nothing like yours.
Right.
So there's so much that
Absolutely.
these tests are, telling us, like, these diets are, they can do this, they can, reduce inflammation, and they're great for weight loss and blah, 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 blah. But again, it's looking mostly at male bodies and the way a male
Mm-hmm.
body processes food and breaks things down is still different than how a woman's does. And so you can read those tests all day long. They're still
Mm-hmm.
only going to tell you so much. And
Right.
and there's so much that needs to change in that aspect. So
Phew. Yeah.
as much
Goodness.
as anecdotal stories sometimes seem like they're not always the best to get your information from, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of got to take that a little bit with the science as well, because there's things like acupuncture and some herbal treatments um and like Chinese herbs, things like that, where like it's very difficult to do testing on it and really get scientific evidence on.
Right.
But it's been going on for hundreds and even thousands of years. And the anecdotal stories that talk about the help that they have provided is huge. So sometimes it's about finding the balance between both of those. Don't get me wrong, the science is amazing, and really having that backing is huge when it comes to health and
Mm-hmm.
nutrition and how we take care of our bodies. But sometimes there's a little bit more on that anecdotal side too that can really make a difference. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it is just kind of a balancing effect with putting a little bit of both together and seeing what works best for you personally.
Right. Yeah. And acupuncture is awesome. Like,
Yeah,
it was actually covered through my ACA um insurance.
that's
Uh
great.
and with a copay and what have you. But
Mhm.
I did like 6 rounds of it, and it really helped with plantar fasciitis.
Mhm.
So, there's a bunch of different things that it can help with, but I was totally blown away by
Yeah.
the effectiveness of that. And I hadn't made any other changes while I was doing that, so that I
Mhm.
could kind of stick to that was what was happening. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah. Um, so, I wanted to ask, when women in
Mhm.
their, late 30s to early 50s, because that's generally where we're at.
Mhm.
And I get it, like some people go into perimenopause younger, some older, but generally, late 30s to early 50s is where we're at.
Yeah.
When
15 to
they
20
come to
years,
you,
we're in that phase.
yeah,
It's a good time.
yeah, it's been fun.
Mhm.
But when they come to you with like questions about, for it, I don't know if they do, but maybe they do, sexual dissatisfaction,
Mhm.
or, um, anything like that, or rather, when they come to me about it,
Yeah.
my first question is, have you seen a nutritionist?
Mhm.
And I guess if I was to send them your way, what kind of questions would you ask about like their diet, or, their movement, what have
Mhm.
you?
I kind of cover a very wide base of lifestyle choices. So
Mhm.
not only does it cover diet, hydration, your overall nutrition, but like you said, if there's physical activity, we talk about sleep, we talk about stress, we kind of talk about what social relationships and family relationships and things are like as well, because all of that
Uh-huh.
together ultimately plays a part on your digestion, the choices that you make when you're putting food in your mouth, whether you're a little bit more of an emotional eater or not. Um, all of that makes a very big difference on kind of what your body does with food once you start to consume it. So,
Hmm.
even though I am a nutritionist, a lot of what
Mhm.
I do is food and all of the lifestyle choices, because again, that's what makes us so individual. It helps me
Mhm.
kind of put together a much more personalized um, suggestion of things that might help your body, things that you might need. But the recommendations I make for you based on what you've told me about your relationships, your diet, your physical activity, your sleep, and such might not be helpful at all to somebody else.
Okay.
So I have to take into consideration everything that affects you and your body and look at that whole picture to be able to say, okay, there are certain foods that I really think would help if we incorporate them a little bit more into your day-to-day meals. There are some
Mm-hmm.
things that maybe we want to reduce in quantity a little bit. But for the most part, unless there's something that's really causing a medical issue too, I try really hard not to do elimination diets and reducing foods it's more about
Mm-hmm.
what can we add in, what can we make sure there's more of, what can we build into what you're already doing.
Right.
Because when we restrict, first of all, that's the only thing our brain can focus on. Then that's the only thing we want.
Right.
Taking away foods for some people can be very traumatic, especially if they have a limited amount of foods that they already feel comfortable eating.
Mm.
So I don't ever want to put someone in a position where they feel like they don't have enough to consume already.
Okay.
It's always about seeing what we can add in, what we can do to boost what you already have, like starting with your ground level and adding layers to build up and up so that you're always in a position that you feel content when you eat, that your
Mm-hmm.
body feels like it's comfortable, it's growing, it's thriving, it's getting what it needs, and that you're not in a position after eating where you feel pain, discomfort, sluggish, tired. We want food
Mm.
it's fuel for you. We want it to make sure it's continuing to fuel your body and giving you the energy you need, helping you to have those strong muscles and brains. Every part of your body is functioning the way it's supposed to. And if we don't feel that way after we eat, sometimes we don't want to eat anymore too. So looking at ways to make sure
Mm.
that we feel good with food and there's a positive association and positive relationship with it, so that
Mm-hmm.
hopefully either it's not leading to some disordered eating behaviors, or that if those already exist, we're doing what we can to repair those behaviors and try
Okay.
to establish positivity with food.
Okay. All right.
And then using that
Nice.
to help improve libido and everything that's great about our sexual being and our environment. I realized that was a very roundabout way to try to answer your question.
It's all
but
good.
um but yeah, it's looking at whole picture. It makes a very big difference. So
Mm-hmm.
I as much as I can say, yes, I am a nutritionist, it is never just about food and food only. Everything else
Right.
plays a
It
really big
can't
part.
be.
No.
Yeah. We're whole people.
Yes.
And I get it. Like, it's so hard to say, like, if I'm asking you, so you're like, it would really depend on the person and
Yeah.
like their circumstances and what they're already doing and what they want to see different and what have you. Are there certain tests that you want your clients to do, like blood tests or
Mhm.
like looking for any allergies or anything like that when they start working with you?
Uh the issue with tests is they're ridiculously expensive. A lot of times,
Yep.
some of the things I would originally think to ask people to do are not covered by insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a lot, truthfully, can be found with your very basic blood tests that you do kind of on a yearly basis with with your doctor already. So I tell
Like
people
if you're
that, like,
going to like an annual
yeah,
physical.
if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
your annual wellness check, what I tell
Mm-hmm.
people is if they recommend you do some basic blood work, do it. Even if you're not a
Okay.
fan of needles, like just suck it up the once a year because it makes a really big difference. If
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at your lipid panel, so your cholesterol, your LDL and HDL, and your triglycerides, we're looking at your glucose. We're looking at basic vitamins. Sometimes you have to ask for them; they are often not included. But I tell people, like, ask your doctor if they can just include vitamin D on the
Mm-hmm.
blood list, or looking at your B12. Um, they test a lot for electrolytes, so those are already counted for, but some of the additional vitamins are add-ons. They're not automatically included in your basic blood panel. But
Okay.
but there's a lot that we can get just from looking at those results first without spending extra money on additional testing. There are some times where if there's somebody who we think there might be an overgrowth or a parasite or like a big um, allergy that hasn't been diagnosed yet, then yes, there's
Mm-hmm.
additional testing I would look at, but that is never my first step because it costs a fortune. Um,
Okay.
so I tell people if you can get your basic blood test done annually with your doctor first, and then
Mm-hmm.
if they're comfortable sharing the results with me too, what I'm looking at is going to be very different than what a medical doctor looks at. They look at
Mm.
your typical, this is, A to B, this is your range. And if I don't get any flags that something's too high or too low, then they tell you you're perfectly normal and that's fine. nutritionists have a much more optimal range of numbers for a lot of those tests. So we can tell you that, hey, you didn't get flagged from your doctor, but if you actually look at the optimal range for vitamin D, you're like 1 point away from being out of range. And that's a little
Okay.
concerning. What I can do is help show you ways that through food and through some time outside and some sunlight, you might be able to naturally increase your vitamin D without even having to worry about just spending money on a supplement.
Right.
Your doctor is not going to have the same range of numbers to look at that a nutritionist would. So we definitely pay a lot more attention to when you're like on the cusp of being out of range and telling you, you might want to look at this, and we can take some precautions now and adjust how you're eating so that it doesn't go out of range next time you go see your doctor and they're not prescribing you medication for this later.
Right.
I always do what I can to start with food first and, make sure that hopefully medication and supplements is not really a necessity, because again, it's just an added cost. You never
Right.
know sometimes what you're getting with supplements either. There's minimal to no regulation
Yeah.
on them. And so that's just another, an added, not only added expense, but an added concern that like, if what I'm taking, is it really helping me? Is it doing anything? Is it causing more harm? So not something that I do very often unless it's really necessary. Like always try to start with food first. And
Right.
again, like people don't need to spend extra money with me. They really don't. They're getting that literally everywhere else in their life. So if I
Right.
can help you avoid that, I will do my best.
Now, if there are people coming to you that have already gone through, let's say, testing with their OBGYN and found
Mhm.
out that they do have like lowered estrogen, lower
Mhm.
progesterone, whatever, are there any foods that you would recommend they give a try,
Mhm.
or different ways of eating?
Absolutely. One of the things that again, there's kind of some people have tried this method and swear by it. Some people have tried it and said it does nothing. There is something called seed cycling that for some who are trying to help balance hormones, it can potentially be a helpful nutrition tool to incorporate. And part of it is you're already going to be adding things in that are beneficial for your body anyway. So what I tell people is if you're willing to try seed cycling for a couple months, see if it helps with balancing hormones and helping improve some of the symptoms you have, that so at most it is really helpful. If it doesn't shift your symptoms, you are still giving your body extra nutrients that it needs.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be other shifts that happen that maybe you didn't notice right away or you weren't counting on, but maybe you find that they still are beneficial. So it's using, I'm going to have to pull this up because there's so many seeds and I always go, oh, it's these two, and then go, no. But looking at seeds like flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, and it's my fourth one. Like I said, I'm gonna have to pull this up because every time I go, oh, the seeds, I want to say chia, but it's not chia seeds. Anyway, what I'm getting at is there are a couple seeds that, first of all, they're really great with added protein. They're really great with added omega-3 fatty acids, like we talked about before, which is great for reducing inflammation. And they're tiny little nutrient dense little amazing seeds, and they can help.
Nice.
There's two of them that you do during, the 2 weeks ish. Again, everyone's cycle is different too, of ovulation, and the other two you do
And they're
during.
getting weirder and weirder as we age. So
Yeah,
yay.
because they're never, again, everyone's cycle is completely crazy. But technically, you would take 2 seeds during ovulation and 2 seeds during the time period where you're menstruating, and they help balance estrogen and progesterone levels between the seeds so
What?
that hopefully for those who find that it is helpful, there is more balance in some of those symptoms you were talking about where, maybe you're having some hot flashes or some sweats and things like that get a little bit more subdued. Again,
Nice.
like I said, there are some people who try it and say they don't notice any changes. There's not a lot of studies done on it again, but
Of
part of
course
me is
not.
like, if you don't notice that if you notice it's not doing anything, it's okay to stop. Chia seeds and pumpkin seeds and flax seeds and sesame seeds, though, are still amazing little powerhouse foods for you, though. So there's not really a downside to trying them. It's as easy as you can put them in a smoothie, sprinkle them on oatmeal, add them to some yogurt, put them on a salad. There's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of extra work to incorporating them in to try out and see if it helps. But if it
Right.
doesn't, you've still added some more nutrient dense foods to your diet. So there's
Yeah.
not going to be, thankfully, there's no negative side effect. There's no adverse effect to trying.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I usually kind of suggest when somebody comes to me and they feel like, hormones are all over the place and they're really struggling with some symptoms because of that and they really don't know what to do. And I kind of like, well, we could try this for a couple months. If it seems like it's something you can add into what you're already doing daily, let's give it a try and see. If you find it's too much
Pumpkin
work,
seeds are amazing.
right?
They're so
And
delicious.
all the
Oh my
seeds are
God.
amazing. They're
All
all
the
so good.
seeds. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very, again, like with the drinking more water, it's a very simple thing you can try to see if it makes a difference for you. And the reason I say that, there's no guarantee that it'll work for you. Again, every single person's body is different. We react differently to different things.
Right.
And a lot of things with food is very trial and error. We live in that society. We want the instant gratification. We want to lose 10 pounds tomorrow. And just that
Mm-hmm.
nutrition does not work that way. We cannot get immediate results.
Oh no.
But looking at it from the other way, when we talk about when we, either if we gain weight or lose weight and how our bodies shift, like they don't shift overnight. It takes months and sometimes years to get to a different body. And we have to take the same time to go in the other direction. And that's very hard. Very hard for a lot of people to
I was
understand.
hard on myself
Mhm.
for decades.
Mhm.
I smoked, I drank,
Mhm.
and I drank like big frozen drinks or like really sugary alcohol, you know what I mean? While smoking and eating whatever I wanted. Like I came by this quite honestly.
Mhm.
So to change direction, it's like, it's trying to turn the Titanic.
Yeah.
Like you can't turn it and
Yeah.
completely miss the iceberg.
Yeah.
You have to go ahead and be ready. And it's going to take a while. It's going
Yeah.
to take a while to turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Having that patience is key. And a lot of our society doesn't have it. They want
Yeah.
that instant change. And it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't. You've got to give
Yeah.
yourself time. And so I think that's one of the big things I have to get my clients on board with is that like I can talk to you and I can give you some recommendations and you can come back in a couple of weeks and we can talk again. Chances are good you're not going to see big drastic changes the next time you come back and see me. Your body needs time to make those changes and adapt and just try something new and see how it fits in. And that's definitely a struggle I see with a lot of people when it comes to nutrition, but time is so important, so key. And we, because we don't change overnight, it's just so many people don't want to, they feel like it's too much effort to make those changes. But when you look at the other things that we spend time and money on, like, why not the thing you need to do to keep your body alive? Again, we all have to eat. We don't
and
have to drink
functioning.
alcohol.
Yeah, but functioning as best as it can, with the least amount of pain,
Yes.
the least amount of struggle,
Yes.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's like a big party bonus right there,
It is.
Yeah.
All right, so let me put this out
And
there
we
so
have
that
to eat. Yes.
yeah, so I'm actually putting out the correct information because, like I said, every time I talk about seeds, my brain goes, "Oh, I said this seed, but it really was this other seed." So, when it comes to seed cycling, again, I have the specifics of what to actually do, but so that people have the accurate information. During menstruation, it is flax seeds and pumpkin seeds, and during your luteal phase, your ovulation phase, it is sesame and sunflower. So those are the 4 seeds that you kind of rotate around. And they help with, again, like having omega-3s. They help with, they're great with fiber and with micronutrients and some protein. And they also have lignans, which are fibers that our gut bacteria digest, so helpful with digestion. They have antioxidant properties. They have phytoestrogen properties, anti-inflammatory. They're cardioprotective for our heart. Just so many great
Dang.
things going on with these itty bitty little seeds. So just again, like I said, you get those benefits anyway, just trying it out and adding that
Right.
into your diet. Hopefully it helps with some of those perimenopausal symptoms as well. But if it doesn't, look at the other things you just added in your body: anti-inflammatory properties, heart protective properties, just added vitamins and minerals that maybe you weren't getting through some of your other food. So
Right.
still
And
a
I feel like
bonus.
seeds are like universal on like so many different I know you don't like to do restriction, but if
Yeah.
you do have to do restrictive diet, like if you're metabolically sick,
Yeah.
seeds are acceptable on like
Yes.
keto,
Yep.
paleo,
Yep.
vegetarian, vegan, what have you,
Yes.
right?
And even looking, so back to pediatric nutrition, so many schools are nut free now. Seeds are your
Mm,
alternative to
okay.
what you need for nut butters.
Yes.
So sunflower butter, pumpkin seed
I
butter.
remember I used to have to send Charlie with
hmm
sun butter sandwiches because
Yes.
there was no nuts at the
Yep.
one school he went to. Yep.
Soybean butter. They even make it out of watermelon seeds now, which is crazy. It's a very
What?
acquired taste. It kind of tastes like you're eating watermelon rind, but it exists. So all of the seeds can now be made into seed butters as an alternative for those with nut
All
allergies or
right.
going to schools and needing to find the alternative. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
but
I got a
they're
friend with a
powerhouses of
son who
nutrients.
has terrible peanut allergy. Like they couldn't have peanuts on planes if
hmm
he was on there.
Yep.
And like, she could never bring him over to our house because I never had any idea whether Charlie had wiped peanut butter
Right.
somewhere.
Right.
Because I don't keep my house all that clean. So anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
that's wonderful that
Yeah.
they have all of these alternatives now.
Yeah. Thankfully for
Well,
those with allergies, we are living in a world of alternatives. And they're so much more accessible now to work around those food allergies and intolerances and sensitivities that, like, it's another reason I try not to deal with restriction. We can always find a swap and
right.
find something else that hopefully makes your body feel better.
Now we just have to figure out what's causing all the uptick in allergies. And then, do something
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. No.
That's a whole story for a whole other day.
Yeah.
And I have to let you go because you have other things that you have to do
Oh my
today.
God.
So,
How dare you make me
um,
work?
I know I'm the worst. So I wanted to wrap up with some information on how people can get in touch with you, follow you, work with you. So go ahead and lay it on us, and I will definitely add in all of these in the show notes in case you guys don't have a pen and paper, your notes app open, what have you.
So I am Browne Bag Nutrition. It is Browne with an E on the end because that is my last name. So the easiest way to find me is my website is brownebagnutrition.com. I am also on Facebook as Browne Bag Nutrition. I'm also on Instagram as Browne Bag Nutrition. Just make sure you have the E after Brown and you'll be able to find me on all of those veins. You can also email me at brownebagnutrition@gmail.com. Going through my website is going to give you my phone number. I'm primarily a virtual business right now, so all of my appointments are virtual. I am based in Maryland, so primarily Maryland clients as well because I am licensed here, but there are lots of states in the country that don't require nutrition licensure that I'm able to speak virtually to those people as well.
Okay.
I actually have it listed somewhere on my website when you're, if you ever want to schedule a session with me, it lists the states I'm not able to work with. So I have that listed as well. But yeah, come find me on Instagram and Facebook. Please follow me. I need to have a better social media presence. I'm terrible about posting, but I'm getting better. Usually it's pictures of my kids cooking recipes with me in the kitchen. So they're adorable.
There you go. Yeah. It'll be fine. Oh my goodness. Well, I just want to thank you so much. This has been
Thank
really
you.
enlightening and great and has made me aware of how many workshops I want to plan with you and
Let's do
how
it.
many more episodes I want to have you on different topics. So you'd better start putting like a little Jenny block on on your calendar.
Every week. Just talk to Jenny. Talk to Jenny.
Right. That's right.
You got it.
Well, this has been so good. I want to thank you and I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of Storytime with the Intimacy Ally, where we say, fuck no to the status quo. That's right. All right. Bye, my lovelies.
Thank you for tuning in to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. We hope you learned a bit more about putting the fire back in your romantic relationships, exploring communication and emotional readiness in all relationships, and how to expand your definition of intimacy so you can reach your relationship goals. Go to theintimacyally.com to subscribe and never miss an episode. Follow the links in the show notes to social media and events. Till next time, keep on learning, growing, and thinking. Storytime with the Intimacy Ally podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as health or mental health advice.